Hello, lovely podcast listeners. I'm just going to say this one more time because the title of this podcast is maybe a bit more alluring. Same word I used last time. The title of this podcast is going to be something like the Eat As Little As You Can diet. And it's the brainchild of my mantra that probably goes back about 6 or 7 years now, of diet on as little calories as you can realistically maintain for the duration of your diet. And I've spoken about this kind of concept a few times. And it's an interesting one, so I just want to have a long prose way of discussing it for you and give you some insights. Now, the topics I've been speaking about in the last 2 or 3 episodes have been related to kind of rapid fat loss protocols and, the evidence, the science behind these things, which often get misportrayed on social media by people who just want to help people maybe but don't actually understand science, maybe get a bit mixed up with stuff, or they relate, for instance, someone doing a Herbagimp shake diet or working with a Herbagimp and being advised to use Herbagimp products and they then sort of see those people failing and relate that to all kind of rapid fat loss protocols or protocols using meal replacements or, shakes, instead of food for a meal. These kind of tools that people can use effectively and are evidence-based and been shown to work and even work better than some maybe more moderate protocols. Anyway, I was saying at the beginning, I will be speaking on the 27th of November, 27th of November in Nottingham, UK, England, on rapid fat loss protocols, the kind of exact numbers, the ways of doing these for yourself or with clients at our Mac Nutrition Live event. And again, I will add a link in the description of the show notes for you to get £80 off a ticket to that. So that literally almost makes it half price. Go and read more about it. I'm not going to talk more about it, but come along. It's going to be an amazing day. There's an after party and a dinner if you want to make a weekend of it. The link will basically sign you up for my Mac Mail. Just stick your email in and then I'll be able to respond to you with that coupon. Right. I'm just going to say this before I go ahead. Because I was just thinking about it as I was walking to the podcast room, that, and it relates to what I've just saying there about people failing on fad diets, we'll call them, because there is an issue with some of the wannabe evidence-based people, or maybe the well-meaning people out there, that they think. And this is one of the talks at Mac Nutrition Live about where intuitive eating meets intentional weight loss. And some of maybe the studies or data that will be discussed in that session is that people believe it's like, of course, if you're going to do stupid diets, of course, your metabolism is going to slow down, you're going to rebound, etc., which is not, what's the word? A clear description of the landscape of what really occurs. Because you can do, I've changed my habits and I've done things slow and I've eaten whole healthy foods and blah, blah, blah. And you can still regain all of the fat that you lost. We know that when people crash diet, they regain weight. And a lot of that weight is just water. I've just sort of thought, I wonder if that's worth a podcast. Explaining weight regain might be useful, and then talk about the failure feeling, which then drives fat regain, which is not the same as weight regain. Anyway, that's quite a cool potential topic. So what I'm talking about there is when people lose a significant amount of body weight, there are physiological things that go on that make it hard to maintain that weight loss. It doesn't matter how healthily they've done that, it doesn't matter a great deal. There may be some hacks within there that make it easier to maintain the weight loss doing certain different things. But one of those hacks may well be using some sort of rapid fat loss for some people. Not least of all being the fact that it's just easier to get it off quicker and with less hunger. I've discussed that evidence before. It's pretty solid. And likewise, they do it quicker. So there's less time for them to develop obsessive or tendencies or a poor relationship with food, because it's not such a long time of restriction, which builds this habit of restriction. Whereas, when your only restriction is only a week or 2 or 3 or 4 at tops, it's different. So, and this is really what I want to talk about, the eat as little as you possibly can diet. And, some of them, I guess, counter arguments of something that sounds so insane that why would Martin be saying something like that? But I want people to realize that just saying, if you lose the weight slowly and healthily, you'll keep it off. It's only when you lose it fast. That's not true. And there's much, much more to the conversation that needs to be said there in terms of the adaptations that go on. For instance, Kevin Hall's work, where they showed this increase in appetite. I will put the study in the description for you, for those of you who are interested. Increase in appetite of 100 calories per day. Your appetite goes up for every kilogram that you lose. Very, very interesting data. Now, it's not unequivocal. It's not necessarily across the board, this, that, and the other. But, whenever you've talked to someone who's, living at a weight-reduced body weight, having lost a lot of their weight, they do spend a lot of their life hungrier than the average bear. Is that what was that thing? Smarter than the average bear. What's his name, that bear? Throwback to childhood. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, it really is. There's an H in it, isn't there? And a G. Anyway, hilarious. Why am I on about that? So, there is this increase in hunger, reduction in expenditure that we understand occurs through the reduction in that NEAT. Anyway, I'll leave that there. But what I'm talking more here is some of the mentality, some of the discussion, some of the realizations you need to have around this thing of the eat as little as you can diet. And I'm using my own experience just because it's motivating to talk about this, and obviously people see on my stories and then ask questions, so then I talk about it. And I haven't had the personal motivation, mentality, brain space to really do this in an overly specific way. If I did, I would maybe document it a bit more for you guys on Instagram. But therefore I feel like it's nice to discuss it in this format, because I'm a bit like many of you as listeners, maybe. Not some of you, you're ridiculously regimented and everything, but being a bit here, there and everywhere with the babies and half term and working, and just work being a bit crazy at the minute in a good way, and also just dealing with loads of other stuff personally. It's just, I don't really have the headspace to go, right, this is what I'm going to do. But I ended up with a tight deadline of wanting, to diet hard. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start. And I've done this before, not calorie counted, but I've been, again, a bit more structured with it and had the right things in my fridge and my cupboards and all that jazz. Whereas my mentality, and again, this is the thing of, you need to go into these situations. I find it very, very difficult to have any discussions these days without going, the mentality with which you start the diet is really going to set the scene for what goes on. And, 2 days in, and the first 2 to 3 days tend to be a lot harder for me. And really, it's been drawn out into kind of 3, 4, 5 days, because I have allowed myself a lot of flexibility. But I was out with my staff for drinks, and they all ordered pizzas. We're supposed to be there for drinks. All ordered these amazing pizzas. And, I sort of said on my stories, people might look at that and go, oh, live a little, you can have that. You're talking about unconditional permission to eat. The reason I was able to resist is because I do give myself unconditional permission to eat. I don't go, you can't have that. But I'm 2 days into dieting. If I can't stick to a goal, I use this analogy of like, if someone's like, I'm going to run a marathon, but then it's like raining on the second day and they go, it's going to be hard. I don't want to do it. There's an issue with maybe your mentality of really and I say, if it's not like a hell yes, it should be a hell no. If it's not this is an exciting endeavor, I look forward to seeing what I'm going to be able to achieve, you maybe need to reassess the situation and go through a period. This is why things like intuitive eating are good. Intuitive eating is very specific, but even just a process of just not restricting yourself and almost just having compassion for your eating and your current body weight, body size, wherever you're at, and making sure that you're eating all of these foods that you like, but also starting in a place where you have some adequate habits around things, where you're not just like in a place where you're really, really medicating with food because of some horrible thing that's going on in your life. Maybe you need to get over that horrible thing, however that may be, before you start trying to push yourself in this sense. That's a maybe. For some people, they find that focus good to take them away from whatever they're feeling, grief, that for instance. Actually, this is a bit deep, geez, but when my dad passed away, I actually, and whether or not this is a good thing, like counsellors have said, bottling stuff up or pushing it to the back of your mind, like keeping busy at some point within stages of grief or struggling with stuff, is actually an appropriate or adequate coping mechanism when you're just not able to deal with those feelings or your situation appropriately and work through them. I actually used competing in a bodybuilding show as a way to not just crash and burn around that situation. We've had lots of people really, it's been lovely to be able to be part of it, but people saying, someone's passed away or they're dealing with something really horrible, and their MNU work has really just been that one constant in their life. Anyway, way too deep. But good discussions. So the eat as little as you can diet, which isn't a diet I'm releasing or any sort of book, which is just essentially a mentality of, I've got good habits, I've got good relationship with food, can give myself unconditional permission to eat when I need to or want to, or just, for whatever reason. And I've started this process because when you do diet aggressively, hunger, for me and many, many others, the data supports this, really, really goes down. And then it becomes just a much easier, quicker, motivational process than I'm going to eat 1,800 calories a day and be a little bit hungry every single day, and every single temptation, let's call it, is a taxation of my willpower. So, there's also a discussion that's just come into my head there of around setting up your lifestyle. Like, I know when I'm busier, I know when I'm busier, things are just a lot easier. Last night I might have been hungry, but I went out and had a couple of Diet Cokes and rum and Diet Coke. And so, I've got maybe 140 calories there that I've had, but I've been super busy and not thinking about food, that it was just absolutely fine, and ended up not really having a really long period without food, without feeling hungry and loving life. And then came home and had a shake before bed, and that was happy days. So anyway, with regards to this eat as little as you can diet, it's more a transition phase I've used. And like I said, because I've not been as strict, like some of you will know, I've discussed 36-hour fasts in the past, and as a great way. I don't know why I feel a bit congested, so I'm sorry I keep clearing my throat. I'm just going to do one. Hold on, I'm going to mute you. Hopefully this is still recording. Hold on. Oh, I shouldn't do that. It's all right. It's recording. Who knows? Let's hope the sound's still good. it's been a transition. So essentially, yes, I have had to, here's a fancy phrase, or just like, it's a bit of a namby-pamby phrase actually, but just lean into the hunger. Like, okay, I'm dieting, I'm leaning into the hunger, I'm pushing the envelope on the hunger, I'm just like extending periods between meals until I do eat again. And I'm very, very much picking foods that satiate me. So, just before this podcast, I asked my I asked my PA to cook me a load of chicken. And yes, I'm very fortunate that I have someone to do that for me, but it's not a hard task to do yourself. So don't start giving me, it's easy for you. You could just eat it cold. I just really prefer it warm, because I do buy cooked chicken and then just heat it up, so it's just a bit more crispy, a bit more nice. And anyway, so just having that on hand. And yesterday I did that, and I was as well, and I was really hungry, and I ended up eating 2 meals worth of chicken in one sitting, and allowed myself to do that. But I ate 2 meals worth of chicken, and I just told you that I ended up not really having dinner. So it ended up working out for me. Even if I did then have some dinner, because I'm picking certain types of food, there's room for movement. When you're aiming for somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 calories, and your maintenance is, 2,500 to 3,500, depending on the day and your activity and this, that, and the other, it's, you're almost always in 1,000 calorie deficit. And anything more is a bonus, as it were. And so the unconditional permission to eat is important. Your perception of the restriction is important. Choosing food. So again, I opt for lots of soups. I was in a meeting yesterday and I was just like, I'm just a bit hungry and I just want a snack, and ended up having, half a thing of soup, 300 grams. It's like, say, 45 calories per 100. And I don't do this on the day as well. I don't calorie count like this on the day. I just think back. Some people go, you will be subconsciously calorie counting. And I'm like, you're an idiot. But I'm just choosing foods that satiate. So I just ate 300 grams of soup, and it's like, okay, there's 120 calories, and it was filling. But then I was still hungry. So then I came out and I had the 300 grams of chicken and some sugar snap peas or broccoli or whatever that's there. And then I'm eating Greek yogurt with some whey stirred in. And this is the thing. An aggressive diet really is just a very low, Martin, is your diet low fat or low carb? It's like, yes. Yes, it is. Both of them. There's no or. It's low fat and low carb. It's high protein. There's some, essential fat supplementation via omega-3s. There is there are some carbs depending on what I choose to eat. There is there is very little fat for the short time that I'm doing it. So I feel like there's been some good discussion here. I hope you just allow some of this stuff to wash over you, ponder it, think about it. But it's really, really important to maintain a reflective kind of mindset of, is this good for me? Am I really just pushing binge tendencies on myself? Like, I have no desire to binge, ergo I know I'm good. If I start to get those thoughts, I reevaluate what I'm doing. Unfortunately, there is not enough coaching in the world, and not enough of this that's mentioned, that people don't do that. They just push the envelope harder. No, I'm just going to keep going until something snaps. And then when they binge, they then start, okay, well, I'll make up for it. And it just gets worse and worse, which is why the talks on binge eating at the Matt Nutrition Live conference are going to be fantastic. So you've got that scenario of the eat as little as you can diet. And over time, it just becomes easier and easier. So, I've just started this dieting phase. Ergo, being really, really specific isn't overly necessary. Now, if I'm going to go, I'm dieting for 12 weeks, this mentality of eat as little as you can diet maybe isn't going to be overly helpful. But as an initial phase, not too much wrong with it. And you can build. I think the main thing you just have to hear, if you're not hearing it, is I'm doing the aggressive nature of this diet for the appetite suppression and very little else. My diet is more aggressive than the amount of fat I'm currently able to lose, and therefore I will be losing lean body mass, which is mainly water, because I will be burning up my carbohydrate stores and releasing water from the body, and eventually that will kick into a greater level of muscle mass loss, at which point I do refeeds. And this is all the kind of protocol stuff I will talk about in my talk in November. So that's the thing you need to hear here is, if you're doing a 12-week phase, but then, what can you achieve during these periods? Can you go hard for 1, 2, 3 weeks and then go to maintenance and practice living, practice having good habits, practicing getting some good dietary variety, and ensuring that you are, paying attention to good stuff like micronutrient intake, gut health through your fiber variety, your intake, your varied intake of fiber, and all the good foods for that. But again, I'm eating much more vegetables than I probably do. No, that's maybe untrue. Maybe a little bit more. But I know the old me, before I was using my prep kitchen meals that I use, which obviously just have amazing dietary, allow me to have an amazing dietary variety that I just wouldn't even do for myself. Before I was using those, dieting aggressively did increase my vegetable intake a lot compared to baseline, despite eating maybe a half or a third of the amount of total food. Okay, was there anything else I wanted to discuss? I think, the thing I'll end it with is eat as little as you can. The point of that is as little as you can, comfortably and without any negative effects. So, another thing I'll just say is you can't do this when you're jogging and running and doing loads of cardio every day. There's just no point. When you're doing cardio and really hard train like CrossFit, you just can't do this stuff. It just doesn't work. I've said this before in other podcasts. Like, a lady came to me and I think she was doing marathon training or triathlon training. She said, if you were me, what would you do? And I said, I know you're not going to listen to me, but you need to quit your triathlon training for 4 weeks and do these things that I've talked to you about. I know you won't do it, but that is what you should do. And you're probably just going to go away and try and do it whilst doing that, and it's going to be rubbish, and everything's going to fall off. Anyway, she listened to me and she got great results, which is good. And, it's made me think of another study about over-exercising during dieting and the negative effects that it has. Over-exercise, diet, metabolic adaptation, RMR, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it's as little as you can without those negative effects of, I'm aiming for 1,000 calories, I'm aiming for 1,500. Well, if I have 2,000 on a day because I was super hungry, but I feel like I'm a success, it's not, I spoke to a friend the other day who's dieting hard for a competition. It's like, I had a couple of biscuits and I'm disappointed in myself for doing so. I didn't need them. Now, there could have been a better choice, but at that time in that place, emotionally, that's what she needed. So it's good to, if you can go into that situation and just go, and be reflective, like, okay, why is that happening? Is there a way I can, with extreme dieting for physique shows, things are more difficult. And I always say that you need to be aware that, if you've had disordered eating or eating disorders, it's a major, major, major trigger for relapse in those situations. But, for my situation where I've got no end goal, I've got no real time limit, it's a self-imposed time limit for wanting to look a certain way on a certain day. So, and it's not, I don't have to be at my best for a show that is once a year sort of scenario. I've said this before, having a definitive endpoint sometimes it makes you rush and it makes you make bad decisions and it makes you over restrict when really you just need to give yourself a break for 1 or 2 days or a week or these kind of things. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I hope you've enjoyed that or found some of it helpful, or just again, just hearing some stuff. I just hope this, it's evidence-based information, and I know I talk around a subject, but I think this is the kind of thing, is like, if you could have my brain to help you make decisions, it would be helpful for some of you. And that's what I really want the podcast to be there for. If just, sometimes you might hear my voice in the back of your head as you're doing things and just go, actually, yeah, I'm being a gimp. Martin would say that. I need to reevaluate X, Y, Z. What would Martin say? What would Martin do? What would Jesus do? He'd call you a gimp. Okay, cool. Any questions on this, please let me know. Especially these meandering podcasts, stick them on my Instagram post. Let me know. Stick them on the suggestions, topics, questions thing on my website so that I can expand on stuff. But as ever, thank you very much for being a listener. Please, if you haven't left a review, there's so many of you. There's at least 5,000 regular listeners who haven't left a review on the podcast. What's that about? I know some of you won't have iTunes or Apple because I was going to make a joke because you're poor. I don't know why I felt uncomfortable making that joke. I think it's because I recently was telling someone how much better Samsung was than Apple. But anyway, much love. Until next time.